So late Thursday, I shared a clip with you of Representative Salsa basically booting Barbara Lee from a committee hearing on Cuba. What I didn't put out, because I just put the whole clip out, what I didn't mention is the volume disappears because they cut the sound, they being Republicans who sit on the committee. And that was a little bit my mistake, because I suppose I was so shocked that she was booted. It didn't even take a second to think that some people would think there was a sound problem. No, there wasn't a sound problem from our side. The Republicans didn't want you to hear what actually happened when they cut the sound of Barbara Lee being removed from their hearing, which is, I don't think it's very democratic. But the story gets worse. She was on with Caitlin Collins. Have a listen to what she had to say, and then I will re-up and play you again the moment when Barbara Lee, and this is not some tin pot government set up. This is not some government from the mid-50s or whatever. This is 2024.
These are not little kinks, first of all. Racism, institutional racism, is in the DNA of this country. When you look at what has taken place, look at our Native Americans, the genocide of Native Americans. When you look at what has taken place as it relates to African Americans, the 250 years plus of enslaving African Americans, and then you look at the disparities now in our community in terms of health care, unemployment, the wealth gap, housing. You can't tell me that systemic racism does not exist. It's not just a little kink. Secondly, you have personal racism, which is hard to address, but I'll give you one little story that shows you why we need to understand that I don't think she really understands racism. I was walking from the House building on Capitol Hill to the Capitol, and a man, a white guy, stopped me and told me I could not get into the members' elevator. And, you know, we have pens, and I was going to vote. And he blocked me from getting into the elevator and told me I was not a member of Congress and it was for members only. I said, sir, I'm a member of Congress. And I showed him my pen, and he said, whose pen did you steal? Now, this is an example of what personal racism is and how people of color constantly have to deal with this each and every day. But systemic racism is in the policies of this country, and just look at what they're trying to do in terms of eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're trying to not allow for an equal and level playing field, and so it's a very dangerous position that she has. She's clueless.
Well, that's a shame, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, Congresswoman. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thanks.
Welcome, Barbara Lee is not.
Can I ask you the reasoning, Chairwoman? The reason I ask.
Oh, I can tell you about the reasoning is because Barbara Lee, who I know is a distinguished member of the Democratic Party, is a friends with the oppressors and not with the Cuban people. Barbara Lee has been friends with Fidel Castro, and she was. There are many statements that we can't repeat, and that indicates that she is just not with the people that I represent, who are the Cuban exile community in Miami.
Sure.
She is not a friend of the Cuban people that we are trying to liberate.
Point of personal privilege, if I could respond really quick. Chairwoman, you know I respect your work, even though our positions on different issues with respect to the Western Hemisphere and Latin America are sometimes far apart. I respected your voice and your work and the policy that you worked on, but this move to not allow one of our colleagues in the United States Congress, who's been elected by the people she represents, to sit and participate on a panel like this is, I think, unprecedented. And if it's happened before, I don't know about it. And I know that, like many, you have been critical of the government in Cuba in part because it suppresses free speech and suppresses different opinions. And so without getting to the substance of your critique of Congresswoman Lee, Chairwoman, that's exactly what you're doing right now, is you're suppressing somebody from even sitting here and participating in the same way that the Cuban government has suppressed opinion and perspective for decades.
My dear colleague, the Cuban people do not have a platform to express themselves like distinguished lady Barbara Lee or Congresswoman Barbara Lee has had, because she has been able to go to many media outlets. She's been able to express her admiration for Fidel Castro, but this is not the site to do that. She has no position, or she is not welcomed on this committee that I humbly chair. So I thank you very much for your request, but not this time. Therefore, the subcommittee on the Western Hemisphere will come.
Where entrepreneurs can thrive in Cuba.
The only people who have that heat is the Cuban regime. They could make that happen right now. And unfortunately, you have been friends with those who are not in favor of the Cuban people.
Madam Chair, I am a friend of the United States. I am a member of the United States Congress. I am a friend of the global community, and I want to see normal relations between every country in the world and the people of the United States and the government of the United States, whether we agree or disagree. The only way we can ensure the values of democracy are promoted is being at the table, engaging with.
Fidel Castro has been the worst dictator that the hemisphere has seen since the arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492. So
Madam Chair, talk about Donald Trump.
the subcommittee, we are
Autocratic.
among other critical bilateral issues. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. And thank you very much to Mr. Jacobstein for coming and for Mr. Roy for being here and wanting to dedicate your time and your expertise to clarify this topic a little bit more. Do you see this poster behind me? What is it? It's a store owned by the Cuban regime. It's a store that sells Gucci's Armani products.
Madam Chair, I served on this subcommittee for many, many years. I'm an African-American woman who has a point of view where in a democracy those points of views are allowed. And you are doing exactly what you say the Cuban government is by denying myself, a member of Congress who represents the same number of constituents you represent, denying me the opportunity to present my point of view. What is wrong with this ticket?
I would love to have this same type of political discourse in Havana.
Let's have it in Havana. If we normalize relations and have normal diplomatic relations where entrepreneurs can thrive in Cuba.
The only people who have that key is the Cuban regime. They could make that happen right now.
Madam
And
Chair.
unfortunately, you have been friends with those who are not in favor of the Cuban people.
Madam Chair,
I represent
I am
those
a
people
friend
that
of
they
the
know.
United States. I am a member of the United States Congress. I am a friend of the global community, and I want to see normal relations between every country in the world and the people of the United States and the government of the United States, whether we agree or disagree. The only way we can ensure the values of democracy are promoted is being at the table, engaging with
Fidel Castro has been the worst dictator that the hemisphere has seen since the arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492. So
Madam Chair, talk about Donald Trump.
the subcommittee, we are about to start this hearing in order. Thank you. The subcommittee on the Western Hemisphere will come to order. The purpose